I am not running for president, and I plan to serve out my term. I pledge to serve out my term.
That was Senator Elizabeth Warren yesterday, squelching and then squelching again the buzz that she'd be a candidate for president in 2016. For the source of that 2016 buzz, you have to look no further than this magazine cover. Judged by subscribers, the New Republic readership is minuscule, but the impact of the Elizabeth Warren, Hillary's nightmare cover was seismic. Yesterday, Warren knocked down the 2016 speculation, and that's where our conversation got started when she sat down for an interview earlier today here at NECN. It's important to note, by the way, that the news of the death of Nelson Mandela did not come until several hours later, so obviously there's no mention of it in that interview. We began with my follow-up questions about those questions of yesterday about 2016. Here she is. Senator Warren, it's great to see you.
It's good to be here.
So yesterday you make national headlines. You say you're not, I know you don't like this kind of thing. We'll do it briefly. Okay. You say you're not right. Is it because you're a good soldier and you have to wait your turn, or because you think whether it's Hillary Clinton or somebody else, they'll be a good voice on the issues of economic populism that you've championed? What is it?
Look, it's not about me. This is about the issues that I'm out there fighting for. And my job right now is to fight for those issues. We have got to be talking about minimum wage and changing the minimum wage. Families are depending on us. We've got to talk about saving Social Security. We've got to talk about rebuilding our middle class. We still got to be working on holding those big financial institutions accountable.
Yeah, but what better place to do that than at the top of, why would you rule it? Why wouldn't you say, listen, it's not even on my mind right now, but ask me in a few months. I mean, there was a guy, I'm sure you remember this, January of 2006, he'd served 12 months, 1 month more than you. A guy tells Tim Russert, I'm not running. 10 months later, I'm considering it. 7 months later, he's a candidate. Now he's president. I mean, you're not doing a Sherman-esque thing, are you, Elizabeth Warren?
Look,
are you doing a Sherman-esque thing? You're not, are you?
No. What I'm doing is I'm trying to make clear these are the issues I'm working on. This isn't through some other lens of politics. This is through what we have to do as a country. Don't you feel the urgency here of the moment? Things are breaking apart around us, and if we don't focus on these issues, we're going to be in big trouble.
But do you think you serve with 534 other people, assuming all seats are, do you think they feel the urgency, whether it's you championing issues of Wall Street accountability or gross inequalities in income, college tuition issues, minimum wage? Not only are the Republicans in the House problem, many of your fellow Democrats, pick one example. You came out with what I consider to be an eminently reasonable proposal. Let college kids and their families pay interest at the same rate, same discount rate to big banks. That was a 0.75 or something. Mm-hmm. Not only did you not get that, and not only did you not get a vote from your fellow Democrats, they vote for a $6 a month savings for the average American family. $6 a month, and, as you've said repeatedly, to generate a profit of tens of billions of dollars off these kids for the federal government. So even your fellow Democrats aren't listening to a lot of these things.
Well, but look, that's not to say you don't make change and that you don't make the fights. I mean, what would you have me do? Would you have me say, hey, listen, nothing's going to be possible, so we'll quit? Let me just talk to you for a minute about that student loan business. There was a bill coming down the pike that really stunk. It didn't have any caps on what students would pay, so as interest rates go up over the next years, they would pay more and more and more. What they finally ended up with was something that was better than that. It was still something I wasn't going to vote for because I believe in the principle that the United States government should not be making profits off the backs of our kids who are trying to get an education. But I want to keep in mind, 18 other senators stood up and said exactly the same thing. You know, 19 of us is a pretty good beachhead for the next go-around on student loans, because believe me, we are not through on this issue.
Well, let's take another issue that you have championed. The President of the United States got plaudits today in the lead editorial in the New York Times for his passionate speech on income inequality, something you've talked a lot about. Well, you are out there saying Social Security recipients should be getting more, not less. And that same president is championing something called chain CPI, which is a more modest inflation adjustment, which I think you called something like a fancy term for cutting benefits. So the leader of your party and the leader of the free world is talking about cutting benefits in the same breath that he's talking about ending income inequality. So even at the top of your party, you're in a totally different place, aren't you?
It's not a totally different place. It's that we're pulling in the right direction. Come on. Instead of talking about should we cut Social Security benefits this much or this much, we really should be talking about how we need to expand Social Security benefits. Let's keep in mind, 2/3 of all seniors rely principally on Social Security for their support. And for 14 million seniors, Social Security is all that stands between them and poverty. So now we're going to have a discussion about that. What should we be doing about Social Security? We need to make the system work over the long arc. That's our responsibility for a century. Let's talk about this for 1 second. Okay, we have money in the Social Security system right now. It's not what's causing our deficit. But we recognize that if we don't make changes in about 20 years, Social Security payments would drop roughly by about a quarter and then level out for the rest of the century. What that tells us is that we can make modest adjustments to Social Security. We can do it now, and we can not only make the system more secure over time, we actually have within our capacity to do a little more and make more for those who are counting on their Social Security, on their payments. But that's not exactly a radical
notion. Why doesn't the President of the United States say exactly those things instead of suggesting to cut a deal with the Republicans who don't support anything I do, to cut a deal with the Republicans, I'm going to cut benefits for old people?
Well, I'm going to do my best to persuade him, and I'm going to continue to try to argue to him and to everyone else. This is the direction we need to move. We can do this. We can do it sensibly.
What's your blood pressure? I mean, in all seriousness, I know you're not going to answer the question, but when you say that you have this long vision, I know you've only been there, 11 months? It seems like you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
11 months, you said you have 18 senators. Well, you need, 51 or 60, depending on whatever the thing is in the Senate. How do you deal, guns, the anniversary is coming up, as you know, of Newtown, a fairly modest, almost innocuous background check bill, sponsored obviously by a conservative Democrat and a conservative Republican, Manchin and Toomey. That couldn't even get through a Democratic-led Senate. So how do you psychologically, I don't mean this critically, I mean it honestly, how do you psychologically have that long view when there is the, quote, fierce urgency of now on all these issues?
Look, the tools I've got to work with now are so much more than the tools I had before the election. And you can feel the differences. No, they're not as many differences as I want, but like I said, we had 19 senators who said no more profits off the backs of our kids on student loans. We're now having a much more robust debate about not just cutting Social Security, but expanding Social Security. And let me tell you, sometimes it's in small pieces, sometimes it's in big pieces. I got to preside over the United States Senate when Rich Cordray was confirmed to be the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Which that agency,
but that agency is locked into law. And here's the point. It has returned more than $500 million to people who've gotten cheated. It doesn't happen with any big headlines, but it happens. It's making a difference. Oh, I got to tell you one more, because you asked me the question. What gets me up in the morning? Let me tell you what happened just before Thanksgiving. I got the call that New Bedford got $12 million under a SAFER grant, which means that firefighters are going to get to stay on the job and they're going to get some help on their equipment. That's the stuff you get out there and you fight for every single day. You fight for every change. You smile over everything that works, and everything you lose on, you decide you're coming back stronger next time.
Okay, one more blood pressure question, then we'll get off your personal health. There was a magazine cover. I want to know what happens on the level of politics. There was a magazine cover that made huge headlines across the country. People will see it now. It was on the cover of the New Republic. It was Hillary's nightmare, and it was about you. When that happens, what is life like for you? Do you have to make a phone call to Hillary Clinton? Does one of your staff people on the I'm serious, have to say, we had nothing to do? I'm serious. What is that like for someone like you the day that comes out when everybody in America in politics is talking about it? There it is.
So you say exactly that. I had nothing to do with it. Nobody on my staff had anything to do with it. This is not...
Did you talk to her after it came out?
No. This is not about politics. Darn it, we got to talk about these issues.
Let's talk about it. By the way, did you say it was a Sherman-esque statement before? I didn't hear what your answer was. Was it Sherman-esque or not?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Are you saying never? I will never consider running in this through this term.
The point is,
the answer to that?
I am not running for president. I am working on these issues.
Today, let's talk current events just for a second. In hundreds of cities, and this is right up your alley, fast food workers are on strike, making roughly $9.30 an hour. They want $15 an hour. If you were a fast food worker, Would you be on strike today?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I want to make $15 an hour.
You think they're entitled, that $15 an hour is a reasonable goal for
I think that's what you do. I think you get out there and you have labor actions. You know, I believe in unions, I believe in collective bargaining, and I believe in collective labor action to say on our side, everybody else negotiates for their price. They want to negotiate for the work they do. Those are people who get out, they work hard, and they say they're drawing the public's attention to the fact that they can't earn a living wage. And my view is, if you work full-time, you shouldn't live below the poverty line.
A couple of more current things and let you go. We wake up this morning to find out that the NSA is monitoring 5 billion phone records a day, including, quote, incidentally, some Republicans. I'll ask you the same mindless question that everybody else asks. Is Edward Snowden a traitor or a whistleblower who may have saved our personal freedom by his disclosures?
You know, look, what Edward Snowden did has caused enormous damage, and we never want to forget that. But he has also pointed out something that was not in our consciousness about how much of our information was being collected.
When you see that headline this morning when you wake up, what do you say to yourself?
I just want to say, what's wrong with these guys? I mean, it really does make you feel like, has anyone yet gotten control over a real vision of what information we're collecting and why we're collecting it?
Last thing of current events, and I'll let you go. When I read yesterday about what happened in Detroit with a bankruptcy judge saying that a retiree who left her job, assuming that she'd be making X dollars a month based on a career as a public servant in Detroit, or after the Illinois legislature spoke, that pensions that were agreed upon can be cut, I say to myself, unconscionable. And the flip side is, city has to survive. Illinois has to survive. Lowest bond rating. Where are you on the need to cut pensions if we're to keep our government solvent?
So, you know, the first part that we have to look at on the pensions is to remember it's not just that she retired believing she was getting it. She worked for 20 years, for 30 years, and the deal was, they said in effect, we'll pay you $10 an hour, only here's the thing, you get 8 of it, we're going to put 2 of it away, and the 2 we put away we'll invest for you, and over a period of time that's going to grow, and this is going to be your pension for that period of time. They made a promise, and that's part of her pay, and it's part of what she earned for a very, very long period of time. So the idea to come in and say, oops, you know, we're really sorry about that, but we're going to have to cut the pension, I just think is fundamentally the wrong approach here. Now, we do have practical realities, and that is we've got to keep these governments working going forward. And it's fine to point fingers backwards and say, look, the big mistake was back when they didn't invest enough money 20 years ago when they should have, or 10 years ago. Or the big mistake was when they invested with one of the big hedge funds that it turned out fooled them about how much that investment was going to be worth and ended up taking a bunch of money from them. So my view on this is part of it, I do want to look back. I want to know who's responsible, and I want some accountability for why that money is not there in those accounts.
But was it an irresponsible vote to vote with Democratic Governor Quinn in Illinois yesterday to try to save the bond rating and the fiscal solvency of Illinois?
But this is the problem they've now got, is they've worked themselves back into a corner, and I think that means there's going to be some practical changes.
Okay, last time I saw you, I asked you what your favorite television show was. You remember what you said? Homeland.
Yes.
Is season 3 as much a disappointment to you as it is to me?
You know, it's different. It's funny. I put off watching part because Homeland makes me anxious when I watch it.
The United States Senate makes me anxious. So
but this time around, it's not making me so anxious.
So you're better?
And, no. Come on. That was the frisson of Homeland. But have you tried Almost Human?
I have indeed. I'm a happy guy. Elizabeth Warren, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.